I refused to babysit after breaking my leg, but my sister burst into my hospital room screaming I was faking. When the doctor revealed my diagnosis, her face went pale and everything changed. I never thought I'd be writing this from a hospital bed with a broken leg, but here we are. 3 days ago, I was hiking on a trail I've done dozens of times before. It was supposed to be a simple Saturday morning activity to clear my head before another hectic work week. One misplaced step on some loose gravel, and suddenly I was tumbling down a steep incline, my leg twisting in a way that human limbs definitely shouldn't bend. The pain was immediate and blinding. I managed to call emergency services, and after an excruciating rescue operation involving park rangers and paramedics, I found myself in the ER getting x-rays and being told I had a complex tibial fracture that would require surgery. My sister called me while I was waiting for the orthopedic surgeon. I answered, still groggy from the pain medication. "Hey, I need you to watch the little one tomorrow," she said without even asking how I was doing. "I have this important meeting I can't reschedule, and my husband's out of town." "I'm in the hospital," I replied, wincing as a nurse adjusted my temporary splint. "I broke my leg hiking. They're prepping me for surgery tomorrow morning." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I expected sympathy, concern, maybe an offer to come visit. Instead, what I got was an exasperated sigh. "Are you serious right now? You know how important this meeting is for my promotion. Can't you just take some painkillers and watch him? He's 6, not a baby. He can mostly take care of himself." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm literally about to have metal pins put in my leg. I can't babysit." "You always do this," she snapped. "Whenever I need something, you find some excuse. I bet it's not even that bad." The call ended with her hanging up on me. I was too exhausted and in too much pain to process what had just happened, so I chalked it up to her being stressed and not thinking clearly. The surgery went well the next morning, though the recovery would be long. 6 to 8 weeks non-weight bearing, followed by physical therapy. I was drifting in and out of sleep, still under the influence of post-surgical medication, when the door to my hospital room burst open. My sister stormed in, her face contorted with anger. The nurse who had been checking my vitals jumped in surprise. "I knew it," my sister shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "You are just pretending so you don't have to help. Do you know what I had to do? I had to call in sick and probably kiss my promotion goodbye because you couldn't be bothered to help family for one day." The nurse's mouth fell open. She looked from my sister to me, then down at my heavily bandaged and elevated leg. "Ma'am, your brother has just had surgery," the nurse began, but my sister cut her off. "Oh please, he's always been dramatic. Remember when you claimed you had food poisoning during my wedding rehearsal dinner?" she said, glaring at me. "You just didn't want to give a speech." I was fully awake now, the fog of medication clearing in the face of her absurd accusations. The nurse looked uncomfortable, clearly not wanting to get involved in family drama, but also seeming protective of her patient. I took a deep breath and spoke calmly, despite the throbbing pain in my leg. "All right, let's take a look at the x-rays together." I reached for the tablet on the bedside table where the doctor had shown me my fracture earlier. My sister's face suddenly lost some of its certainty. "I don't need to see your doctored images," she said, but her voice had less conviction now. Just as I pulled up the x-rays showing the clear break and the surgical pins now holding my tibia together, the door opened again. The orthopedic surgeon walked in, holding my chart and looking serious. "Good afternoon," he said, glancing between us and sensing the tension. "I wanted to discuss your post-operative care plan, but I see you have a visitor." My sister, never one to miss an opportunity, immediately turned to him. "Doctor, is his injury really that serious? He has a history of exaggerating medical issues to get out of family obligations." The doctor's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He looked at me, then back at my sister. "I performed the surgery myself this morning," he said firmly. "Your brother has a complex tibial fracture that required internal fixation with plates and screws. It's quite serious." My sister's face went pale, but instead of apologizing, she crossed her arms defensively. The room went quiet when the doctor added, "There's something else you need to know." Everyone froze. Even the nurse, who had been trying to discreetly exit the room, stopped in her tracks. "The fracture pattern suggests this wasn't just a simple fall," the doctor continued, his voice grave. "There's evidence of bone density issues that aren't typical for someone your age. We'll need to run additional tests, but this could indicate an underlying health condition." My sister's anger seemed to evaporate instantly, replaced by something that looked almost like guilt. The nurse excused herself quietly, leaving us with the doctor as he explained the battery of tests they wanted to run to check for everything from osteoporosis to bone cancer. After the doctor left, my sister stood there awkwardly, not meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry," she finally said, her voice small. I've been under so much pressure at work, and with my husband away, I'm handling everything alone. I nodded, too tired to hold on to anger. I understand, but you can't keep doing this. You can't keep assuming I'm lying or exaggerating when I can't help you. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'll figure something out for tomorrow. You just focus on getting better. As she left, I couldn't help but wonder if this health scare would change anything between us, or if we'd fall back into the same patterns once I was out of the hospital. Update 1. 2 weeks later. It's been 2 weeks since surgery, and I'm back home now, navigating my apartment on crutches and dealing with the frustration of not being able to do simple tasks without exhaustion. The additional tests came back, and thankfully, it's not cancer. I have early-onset osteoporosis, likely due to a combination of genetic factors and some medication I took for a chronic condition in my 20s. It's manageable with treatment, but it's been a lot to process. My sister has been different. She brought my nephew over the day after I got home, not to ask me to watch him, but so he could give me a get-well card he made. She stayed to help me organize my apartment for easier navigation with crutches, and even set up meal deliveries for the first week. I thought maybe we'd turned a corner, but yesterday, the other shoe dropped. She called asking if my place was accessible enough for my nephew to stay with me this weekend. I know you can't chase after him, she said quickly, but he could just watch TV while you rest on the couch. It would only be for a few hours on Saturday. I was stunned. I'm still on heavy pain medication. I can barely make it to the bathroom without help. I can't be responsible for a child right now. But you're just sitting around anyway, she pressed. And I really need this. It's a work event that could save my promotion chances. When I refused again, she sighed dramatically. Fine. I guess I'll have to figure something else out. Again, the guilt trip was clear, but I held my ground. After we hung up, I got a text from our mother saying she was disappointed I couldn't make a small sacrifice to help family. Clearly, my sister had already called her with a one-sided version of events. I'm starting to think the brief period of consideration for my condition was just temporary guilt, not actual change. Update 2. 1 month later. Things have escalated in ways I never expected. After weeks of passive-aggressive comments and guilt trips from both my sister and mother about my unwillingness to help family, I finally reached my breaking point yesterday. I was at my parents' house for our monthly family dinner, my first time attending since the accident, as I'm now able to move around a bit better with a walking boot instead of the cast. Everyone was there, my parents, my sister and her husband, my nephew, and my younger brother who was visiting from out of state. Dinner started pleasantly enough, with everyone asking about my recovery. But then my sister made a comment about how at least something good came from the accident, because I finally had an excuse to be lazy without feeling guilty. She laughed like it was a joke, but no one else did. My mother quickly changed the subject, but the tension remained. Later, as we were having dessert, my nephew asked innocently why I couldn't babysit him anymore. Before I could answer, my sister jumped in. Uncle is still recovering, honey, but he'll be back to helping us soon, won't you? She looked at me with that expectant smile that always preceded her asking for favors. I took a deep breath. Actually, I wanted to talk to everyone about that. Even before my accident, I was feeling taken advantage of with the constant babysitting requests. I love spending time with my nephew, but it had become an expectation rather than a favor. My sister's face hardened. Oh, here we go? The martyr act again. It's not an act, I said firmly. I've been keeping track. In the past year, I've watched him 47 times, often with less than a day's notice. That's nearly once a week. That can't be right, my mother interjected, looking concerned. I pulled out my phone and showed them the calendar where I'd marked every babysitting request, accepted or declined, for the past 18 months. You've been documenting this, my sister asked, her voice rising. That's so petty. I started keeping track when I realized how often I was rearranging my life to accommodate your last-minute requests, I explained, and how often you got angry when I couldn't help. My brother-in-law, who had been quiet until now, looked uncomfortable. I didn't realize it was that frequent, he admitted. My sister turned on him. Don't you start too. We're both working parents. We need help sometimes. Of course you do, I agreed. But there's a difference between occasionally asking for help and expecting me to be your unpaid, on-call babysitter. The argument that followed was ugly. My sister accused me of never caring about her family, of being selfish and unreliable. My mother tried to mediate, but ended up suggesting that family helps family, and implying I should be more understanding. My father and brother stayed largely silent, though my brother did shoot me sympathetic looks. I finally said, I'm not saying I won't ever help again. I'm saying I need boundaries. I need advance notice, not last-minute demands. And I need my no to be respected without guilt trips or anger. My sister stormed out, taking my nephew with her. My brother-in-law apologized quietly before following them. My mother was teary, saying she hated seeing her children fight. My father finally spoke up, surprising everyone. "He's right," he said simply. "We've all seen how this works. It's not fair." The drive home was difficult with my leg, but I felt lighter somehow. Standing up for myself was long overdue, even if it caused this rift. I'm not sure what happens next, but I know I can't go back to the way things were. Update 3, 3 months later. It's been 3 months since my accident, and a lot has changed. My leg has healed enough that I'm walking without crutches now, though I still have physical therapy twice a week. The osteoporosis is being managed with medication and dietary changes. As for my family situation, there's been progress, though it didn't come easily. After the blow-up at family dinner, my sister and I didn't speak for 3 weeks. My mother tried to play peacemaker, but I held firm on my boundaries. Eventually, my brother-in-law reached out and asked if we could talk. We met for coffee, and he admitted that he'd been uncomfortable with how much they relied on me, but had gone along with it because it was easier than finding alternatives. He also revealed something I hadn't known. My sister had been turning down paid childcare options from his parents because why pay when my brother will do it for free? That conversation was a turning point. He promised to work on setting better boundaries with my sister and finding a more sustainable childcare solution. A week later, my sister called. The conversation was strained at first, but gradually became more honest than we'd been with each other in years. "I've been taking advantage," she finally admitted. "It was just so easy to call you, and you rarely said no in the beginning. When you started saying no more often, it felt like you were changing the rules. I should have been clearer about my boundaries from the start," I acknowledged. "But that doesn't excuse how you treated me, especially after my accident." She agreed and apologized, a real apology, not the defensive half apologies I was used to. We talked about how our relationship had deteriorated and what we both wanted going forward. We've been slowly rebuilding since then. They've hired a regular babysitter for after-school hours and have only asked me to watch my nephew twice in the past month, both times with several days' notice, and both times they made it clear that it was completely fine if I said no. Last weekend, I voluntarily offered to take my nephew to a science museum exhibit I thought he'd enjoy. It was the first time in a long time that spending time with him felt like a choice rather than an obligation, and we both had a great day. My mother is still adjusting to the new dynamic. She occasionally makes comments about how things used to be simpler when everyone just helped each other without all these rules, but my father has been surprisingly supportive of the boundaries I've set. The doctor says my leg should be fully healed in another month or so, though the pins will likely stay in permanently. The osteoporosis means I'll always have to be more careful than before, but it's manageable. Sometimes I think about how strange it is that it took a broken leg and a health scare for my family to finally hear me. I wish it hadn't come to that, but I'm grateful for the changes it's brought. For the first time in years, when my phone rings and I see my sister's name, I don't feel dread. I'm not naive enough to think everything is permanently fixed. Old patterns have a way of reasserting themselves. But now I know I can stand my ground, even when it's difficult. And that's something no one can take away from me.